folks. Thank you for joining us here on Public Affairs. I am your host. My name is John Peterson. I have recently met an individual who you are going to very shortly meet, and his name is John Guthman, but most people know him as Chaplain Otto, and I'm going to introduce you to him very, very shortly. But anyhow, thank you very much for joining us here. This is all about information that will help you in your life, and if not you, perhaps people that you know. So this is a very, very marvelous opportunity for me to introduce you to the man who makes lives better. You'll know him soon. So introducing you to Otto, the founder of Chaplain Otto Ministries. Otto, by the way, for everybody's understanding, is O-T-T-O.
Yes, O-T-T-O.
When I talked to you on the phone, I wrote down A-U-T-O.
Yes, O-T-T-O.
Yeah.
Like
so
the
anyhow,
cartoon Rocket Power.
So here we are, and we're talking to all the marvelous folks out there in TV land, and how I have gotten to know you. I want them to know you as well. So, so for those of them who know veterans and understand the plight of some veterans, you know all of that from the inside out, and so the way you got into this is coming from a life having made a lot of mistakes that you would like to not have done. But so my point is they can realize, they can connect with you very well like that way, but you found a way out of that.
Yes.
But not only that, but you found, I personally believe that God gifted you to help people out of that darkness themselves. So this is a really, really important discussion, I think. And so anyhow, thank you, and you're very, very welcome here, and we're looking forward to helping introduce you to them, and then for you to talk directly to them, right?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
So so tell us something about yourself.
So, again, my name's John Guthman. My road name in the combat veterans motorcycle world is Otto. I'm the state chaplain for Ohio for the Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association and the assistant pastor of the Chapel of Rest. In April of 2023, I launched Chaplain Auto Ministries. I spent the last 7 years in the car business, and throughout, I think it was around like 2019, I had an opportunity to start serving in prison, and I was able to, set up a schedule with, it's Ohio's maximum security, Lucasville. So I've been going there the first Sunday of every month since, I think May 5th or 9th of 2019. And, coming out of the military was really rough for me. But honestly, before the military, it was really rough. And what I learned from the military was, discipline and structure. And that's not something that I had growing up. I had, drive and motivation, but I didn't know how to contain it or control it. And understanding discipline and structure and seeing that I could do more than, I thought that, I was. I think that the military, significantly helped me advance in the car business. And, as I was in the car business, I started going to church, and I started hearing all of these biblical principles, and I started to add them to this formula that I was creating from the military and the car business. And now I want to take all of that knowledge to the streets and to the prisons to help, find the other John Guthman that was once lost. And, I felt like I could never do anything for God. And that was, that's a lie from hell. And I want to help other people see God's true love, that his heart is for them and not against them. And I always say it like the authenticator. Like when you go to a gas station and you hand them a 20 bill and you hold it up there, or they mark across it to see if it has,
Especially...
And you can do that, with the Word of God.
Yeah. And,
as I've been growing and learning and, becoming a student of the Word, now I can take everything that comes to me and I can hold it to the truth. And, I learned that the Federal Reserve, out of all of the counterfeit bills that there are, they don't, study any of the fakes. They only study the real one.
Right.
And that's what I want to do, because if I study the Word of God and know His truth, I will always be able to spot a fake.
Yes. Yeah. So, for those who may have walked that same pathway and do not have hope or do not know how to find that hope, what, in a few words, would you have to say to them?
It's available. I mean, hope doesn't disappoint, and God is for you. Sometimes we're not just willing to work the process to get to that next step, and I think that's where I was for the longest time. Was wanting to have something with God, and I listened to all these thoughts in my head instead of opening up the book or going to a service and taking what the preacher was telling me and putting it into practical application.
Yes.
And me doing that, I mean, I barely graduated high school. I didn't get to walk at graduation. I had D's and F's. There's some of the stuff that is in this is obviously not of me. It's Christ working through me. And if he can take someone like me and do something like this, what won't he do for you?
For the people who are out there who think that they are, and if you permit me for this small point here, who think that they're accidents, that their life is an accident and it has no meaning, etc., that when God told the ancient prophet Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, told me and can tell them that God created you. He hand formed you in the womb of your mother, who nobody in your family knew that was going on, but he did anyhow. And people like you can help them find that understanding that where they may think that they're accidents, they're not. Can you comment to that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, 100%. I mean, I had that type of mindset, growing up for such a long time and, feeling like I maybe wasn't a part of something or like I was worthless or of no value.
Yes.
And that, basically what could I do? And the more that I tuned into, God showing me who he is, because I'm not perfect. After the military, I had 2 DUIs. So, I drank and drove twice, lost my license. The first time was I hated God, I blamed God, and, the second time I was actually in church. But I was still not walking away from some things or letting some things go. And, through this experience of learning how good he is, okay? So I was dealing with the repercussions of an OMVI, and I had a breathalyzer, so I could only drive to work and to church. I had been heavily involved in being a part of groups, going to church, the first Wednesday service, just everything to continue to know who God was, because I knew that he didn't set me up for failure.
Yeah.
And he didn't set me up. I really made a mistake. And
Yeah.
I understood that, I'm the one that made this mistake, but what the enemy meant for evil, he can and will turn it for good if I allow him to. Mm-hmm. So, I'm being a student, I'm studying, and I'm learning, and I get an opportunity, a phone call to do this first prison trip. And the prison trip was about 2 hours away, and I had no way to get there. And what I'm getting at is God can use you, and he'll make a way no matter what you think, because in my mind, I thought, I have no way to get there because it's out of the regulations of my driving capability. Mm-hmm. I ended up being able to find a ride and, went down. And the first time I was there, this guy said, his name's Bob Fry, said, I've been waiting 27 years to get to this prison, but today that guy is going to open. And I was that guy. And my thumb landed on Romans 8:28, and we know that God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. No matter what you think, you have a purpose. And if you don't know what that is, ask God to reveal it to you. It's as simple as having a conversation with your next door neighbor or, like ordering a double cheeseburger at the drive-thru. You just have to ask. And you will get an answer. And I didn't know at the time that I was going to be involved in prison ministry and doing what I was doing. And I was excited, but I was like, man, I can't be a part of this because I have no way, I don't have the means to get there.
Yes.
And that night they asked me to be the coordinator. And I was like, well, what in the world is that? And they're like, you're just going to be responsible for getting everybody down there once a month and setting everything up. And I'm like, how? I can't drive. And that was the mindset that I had, that I was useless. And that was what the devil wanted me to think. But because I'd been going to church, I'd been becoming a student of the word, I knew some stories. some real stories from the Bible. And Scripture says that it's written for our benefit and our edification. And I knew that if God provided a ram for Abraham, what wouldn't he do for me? If he split the sea for Moses, what's this ride? Because I didn't ask for it. I didn't raise my hand. I didn't make calls and say, this is what I'm trying to do. It came to me. So I was in a season of learning that if it came to me, I would know that it's from God. And it only took my yes, my blind faith yes and obedience to say yes. And I'll tell you, for 8 or 9 months, I didn't once ask for a ride or pay for gas. It just happened. And that's just being obedient. And there's small stepping stones to the yes, because my yes is bigger now, walking away from the car business, a 7+ figure industry, to starting, a ministry to help people, because I see the benefit that can come from it. And, if people that knew me 10 years ago, 7 years ago, like, they see me as something like, what in the world happened? Well, I finally quit running from God.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point, that you finally quit running from God. And a lot of us are running from God and don't even know that. But when you find somebody talking like that, like you just did, they wake up to the fact that they're running also. And they don't have to do that. I mean, why would you run away from the one who cares more about you than anybody else, right? I was struck by, you're talking about Romans 8:29 says, for those he foreknew, he predestined to be conformed to the likeness of his Son, right? We have a destiny, and we're best to find out about that than the people who understand that, right?
Yeah.
And so help people understand, number one, how did you get into ministry? And what would you like them to know about that, the possibilities that were there for you that you didn't know about? Those same possibilities are for those people out there yet who don't know about that. So how did you get started in this? You've already given us a brief intro, but how did you actually come to found a ministry and begin doing what you're doing now?
By the grace of God. Like I said, I started in 2019, with this project, and it's with Break Loose Prison Ministry. Great prison ministry. Still love to serve with those guys. But I would post stuff, small stuff, here and there, about what I was doing going to the prisons. And I had somebody reach out to me that's like, hey, man, I see, you're preaching now. I'm going to get married. And it was an old friend from high school. And he's like, could you do my wedding? And I was like, well, sure. And I was like, man, I got to get ordained. So the first really thing that happened after the prison ministry started was, I got ordained to do a wedding for a really good high school friend. And I can't remember if my second wedding came up after that, or a funeral. But, I had just stayed active, in church, continuing to go, being a part of small groups, always wanting to learn and do more. And stuff just kind of like came to me.
Yeah.
And with in April, I wasn't exactly happy with the job scenario and everything that I was doing. And I had split ways, and I didn't have like peace about staying in the car business. Like I always knew the car business. And my wife and I had talked before, like, if God ever presents this opportunity, you'd just walk away from it. Well, I wasn't feeling peace about, saying yes to maybe this job or that, because I was looking around. And I just decided I was going to start filling up my time with, trying to be able to help people. And I was able to pick up going on a prison trip. Well, that prison trip got me the opportunity to preach and to go back. And I was like, man, if I would have been doing something else that day, or if I'd have been working that day, I never would have got to go in and share the gospel with those guys, which got me into their veterans group for, the Incarcerated Veterans Association, which is a group inside a prison for veterans. And I got linked up with that, and I didn't even know that it had existed. So, this is, one day in April, I'm like, I did so much in one day, I was like, man, this is kind of like a full-time job. And I just kind of like had that aha moment. And, it had been on my heart, and it had been stuff that, I'd been doing kind of behind the scenes. I really didn't start posting too much on social media until, I want to say, like November, December timeframe of 22. And one of the times I was wearing one of my combat veteran shirts, and this was on TikTok. I just posted a video and that we're going to prison. And, when I got home, I had people from different states that had sent me messages that I had never, I didn't know who they were, but they're like, hey, man, I'd love to see what you're doing. Like, how could we start something out here? Or, hey, I just got put as the chaplain of this group. Like, any suggestions on praying before, we ride? Mm-hmm. And I understood that there were, people out there that, could reach, like this platform, and that it was helping. And right. So I started to step up a little bit more on, like, putting out videos of what I'm doing in the ministry. And I rode my motorcycle to Colorado this summer, and there was a guy that lives in Utah that was there as well, and he saw the video that I posted. He's a veteran, and we were all out there for like this big national meeting. And he reached out to me, said, hey, I'm from Utah, I've been following you for a while, and I want to know if we can meet up. And I got to meet up with this guy and pray for him and like 5 or 6 of his friends. So, continuing on this, my goal is to just share the gospel of what God is currently doing. I've got so many stories I could tell you about prison, not me being in prison, but going into prison to preach. Yeah. And then I come out of prison and I go into some rough spots, where some, the bikers hang out, the bar crowd. And I get to share these stories. And sharing one of these stories led to someone who wears a vest like this, accepting Christ. He accepted Christ in the parking lot of a bar. And, I've had people say, like, well, did he mean it? It was at a bar. I mean, if Jesus was here right now, he's not going to be going to the big churches. He'd be going to the bars. Yeah. He'd be going to the bars and
he went to the lepers and the tax collectors
and trying to reach the lost. And, that used to be a territory that I wanted to take, but now he's sending me in there to take it for him. And, this guy came and he ended up getting baptized at my church, which was so awesome. Then I went back to the prison, and I told them all of this, and 3 guys signed up to get baptized. So, the purpose of this is sharing the gospel, understanding that you might not come from, the best background, but God can still use you. You might not be the smartest, the most elegant, or have the best speech or the highest academic thing. God's not looking. God's not looking for that.
Sometimes that breeds arrogance, and arrogance is something that is high on the list of things that God hates. So, it's the humble people that he looks to.
And I used to be arrogant, and I used to have a lot of pride, and I used to be angry, and I was so involved in the secular world with the alcohol and the drugs and all of that stuff. And that's why I want to go show people that you're trying to fill this empty void that only God can fill that void, and that's the only thing that is going to make change.
And a lot of people think, and I agree with them, that God created that void for himself. So if you're feeling a void in here, that's a divine creation. So the very fact that God would create that divine creation in you and could only fill it but with himself,
yeah,
should let you know something about how he feels about you, right?
Exactly.
And so people have seen that you have founded a ministry. You didn't design it. you didn't know you were doing it. It happened kind of almost accidentally. But there's folks here who will have contact information on the screen that they will. By that, they will know how to contact you and that. So when they do, what is it that you want them to know about you in referencing this ministry? Whether they want to participate with you or whether they want to ask you for guidance as to how perhaps they can do something on their own like that.
Feel free to reach out to me with any questions. My email is on the bottom, Chaplain Otto, and that's OTTO, and that's at gmail.com. I don't know if that says at gmail.com. So, If you go to chaplainauto.com on Google, it'll take you to my temporary website, which is through Linktree, and I have a bunch of information on there. I just launched my first podcast. But if you want to get involved, I'm always looking for volunteers. Please send me an email, and in the subject title, put "would like to volunteer" or, would like to help. By any means, if you think that, you would feel open to, telling your story, telling, what God has got you through, maybe there's some similarities here and you want to help somebody out, I'd like to have you on my podcast. So, reach out to me because I definitely want to, help share the gospel. And if you know anybody that is struggling with PTSD, maybe suicide thoughts, substance abuse, veteran or non-veteran, I would love to help them. Send them to my content. I've got a bunch of stuff on TikTok. I've got videos on YouTube. And my current podcast, the first one, I just launched it. It's on Spotify. So I'm working on, getting it across those platforms. But if you need somebody to sit down and talk to, maybe readjust a little bit of your thinking.
They can sit down and talk to you on Skype or some way like that.
Yeah, and if honestly, if you want to help support the ministry, what we're doing, like he said, I never anticipated doing this. There wasn't, a plan. I had everything that I had done in the ministry, I funded through the car business. So if this touched your heart by any means and you want to help see it grow and advance, if you gave to Chaplain Auto Ministries, we have Zelle through Chase. And also I have PayPal and Tithely. So, and that's all available on my temporary website as well. Mm-hmm. So
marvelous. It just struck me while you were talking about, that if they would like to share the gospel. A lot of people perhaps would like to do that, but some people don't know how to do that. Training or instruction or walking them through scriptures or whatever. My point is that there are people who come into this Christian experience, so to speak, and they have no prior knowledge or understanding whatsoever, and it's a little daunting. The fear of the unknown is one of the biggest fears there is, right? So, to those people who would be confronted with that, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I was there. It was daunting to me to start reading the Bible. I think just like the first time going to the gym, it seemed a little bit intimidating. And the first couple times I went to the gym, I was a little bit more sore. But if you stick with the process, then that soreness goes away. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But when you're going to start lifting heavier weight, you need a spotter. So if you know somebody that's a Christian, someone that's willing to speak into your life, reach out to them. But also, I don't go to a plumber for mechanic issues. So I go to the source, and I think that the smaller, the less people that you talk to is honestly a little bit better. And
number one, pray for guidance.
Yeah, pray for guidance.
Yeah,
100%.
Because God is waiting for you to talk to Him.
But what I'm going to be doing as I'm moving through with this new series that I'm kicking off on the podcast is talking about, a little bit more in depth of my past, where I was and how I got to where I'm at, which will include, how I started reading the Bible or, watching videos. Like my go-to pastor on YouTube is Stephen Furtick. Mm-hmm. If you get out there and you hear some things, just be open. Like, okay, God, if you're going to speak to me, I will be open. And when you hear him speak to you or when you feel that feeling, acknowledge it. Communication. I acknowledged, the communication that you gave me from the very beginning, and look at how we're conversing now. And it's the same exact thing with God. Yeah. And he'll speak to you in a way that only you would understand.
Yeah. And when he speaks to you, you will know.
Absolutely.
And so there's folks that have tuned in mid-discussion here, and they see a guy sitting there with a jacket on, and a cap on his head, and we're talking about Christ and so forth. So you are John Guthman, better known to all your friends as Chaplain Otto. You founded Chaplain Auto Ministries, and you were a combat veteran.
Yes.
And you came out of that and you suffered with, you understand perfectly well the PTSD. You have come out of that. You are able to help people come out of that, and you founded a ministry. You can accept people in to help you with that, or you can tell them how they can follow and found their own. Not that you tell them how, but you can explain to them how that process works, right? That it is actually God who founds it, and then invites you to come help. Right?
Yeah.
Right? So
it's a learning process.
So just to take a minute or two and talk to those people that just joined us.
Well, thank you again for just joining in. And again, my name's John Guthman. I'm better known as Otto throughout the combat veteran world, the motorcycle world. I'm very active in prisons. I speak weekly at a live-in rehab center, and just starting out this ministry, it's. I'm not going to lie. There are days that, are tough. Mm-hmm. And, starting this, I feel like I've had more Christians say that they're going to help me with something that haven't actually helped me with something. And, it'd be very, very easy to want to quit at times. So, if this is where your heart's at and this is what God's call is, I would recommend going after it and not looking back, because if I look back, then I'm not looking ahead and I'm going to get into an accident. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there are people that may find it hard to believe that God, even as he hand formed Jeremiah in the womb, and Jeremiah obviously knew nothing about that, nor did his mother, but God had planned a life for him, knew exactly what he wanted to do, and hand formed Jeremiah. The same God creates us, hand forms us in the womb of our mother. And when we don't know that, then we feel completely lost and meaningless. But when we come to experience that and know that, the sun comes up.
Yeah.
And there will be dark clouds, but the sun stays up. And when the dark clouds are there, the sun's behind the cloud. It's still up, right? And people like you and others get the joy of explaining that whole process, right, in detail. I mean, I'm just covering the overview, but to talk about the details of that, and there are massive numbers of people who need to know how to do that, right? And people like you can help them and lead them through that and explain. I mean, obviously it's God who leads us, but he uses people, right? And it's just a marvelous thing. I'm very glad that you and I met, and that you and I had an opportunity to do this, right?
Yeah,
and to help
absolutely.
other people understand what's going on. And they've had contact information there throughout the program, and they can watch it over and over again, on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. But anyhow, thank you for coming and sharing all this with us, right? And folks, thank you very much. We designed this program to enable you to know things like this, and to meet people like Otto. And so thank you very much for joining us and participating with your viewership and watching and listening. Thank you very much. I am your host. My name is John Peterson. Thank you again.